Okay, I'm just going to test 1, 2, 3 because everyone wants to hear my voice again. Just a reminder, we'll wait for Rebecca Schulz. She'll take the stage. We'll go into questions. You will all get one question, one follow-up, and then we'll call her a day. Awesome. Thanks so much. taking questions today. The rest of the members are supporting this serious issue. We will then please go to questions. I will moderate. If you can have your one question and follow-up ready. We want to get through everyone. Your microphone is at the back, and I'll be over here. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us here today. My name is Rebecca Schulz. I'm the United Conservative Party MLA and candidate for Calgary Shaw. I'm also a wife, a mom, and a proud Calgarian. I came to this city, like so many others, in search of better opportunities for myself and my family. Calgary absolutely did not disappoint. This is, without question, the best place in the world to live, to work, and to raise a family, in part because our United Conservative government has worked tirelessly to restore and protect the basic tenets Albertans believe in. Low taxes, balanced budgets, strong public health and education systems, and helping maintain Alberta's advantage on cost of living. These are things that Albertans expect, and these are the things that my colleagues and I are delivering. We are also taking bold action to tackle crime and disorder, in part with our announcement yesterday to fund 100 more police positions in Calgary and Edmonton. As a mother, I know that this issue is top of mind for so many right now, but I also hear it from people like Cheryl. Cheryl lives in Somerset in the riding of Calgary Shaw. On my way to her doorstep just this week, I saw an ambulance and EMS crew helping a woman struggling with addictions near the C train. Cheryl and her co-workers take the train to work every single day. Her co-worker was vomited on the way to work. She is afraid for herself and for her 18-year-old daughter who takes the C train to school. Then, in a real and raw description yesterday, Chief Dale McPhee outlined what officers in our province face every day. He said, and I quote, "Well, let me share yesterday's highlights in the city of Edmonton to give you a bit of perspective. We arrested a person in transit carrying a replica handgun and crossbow. 2 members went to a convenience store and were attacked by a man with an axe where non-lethal force was used to subdue him and arrest him. Police attended a call shortly after with a male. They arrived, one of the officers was punched in the face, and then we responded to a female that was in trouble being beat up, and again, the person wanted to fight. To those who are concerned, and we all absolutely should be, I would say this: we are taking real action to address crime and disorder, and we are working collaboratively with police to get the job done. It's frightening to think about what Rachel Notley and the NDP would do in government, or, quite frankly, what they would not do if given the chance. Let me be clear, the NDP has absolutely no plan whatsoever to address crime and disorders in community across Alberta. But worse, the NDP candidate's comments suggest resentment towards law enforcement and our justice system. Today, we are calling on NDP leader Rachel Notley to have each of these candidates explain their comments and why they're so out of touch with Alberta families. Calgary Bow NDP candidate Drew Farrell called Alberta police officers domestic abusers, saying, and I quote, "I can't help wondering about domestic abuse within law enforcement families. There's some sick rage there. I bet it goes home with them and the outcome goes largely unreported." Edmonton Ellerslie NDP candidate Rod Loyola said, "Alberta police officers commit crimes with immunity," saying, and I quote, "An EPS badge gives you the right to beat up citizens and not have to face criminal charges." In a speech in the legislature, Edmonton Whitemud NDP candidate Raki Pancholi advocated to cut police budgets, saying, and I quote, "I'm all for spending less money on our criminal justice system." Edmonton Highlands Norwood NDP candidate Janice Irwin shared the disgusting defund the police hashtag on social media. And Lethbridge East NDP candidate Rob Miyashiro supported a motion to cut the police budget in his city while he was serving on council. These comments and actions, particularly the disgraceful comments, are extremely serious and come from a party that has no plan or ability to tackle crime and disorder in our communities. At a time when Albertans are looking for real solutions on crime and disorder, these candidates are harboring deep-seated resentment against our men and women in uniform, and they are seeking to sow anger and division against law enforcement in our communities.
So we want Rachel Notley to show some support for our police and show these candidates the door. If she lets this go, she's essentially saying she embraces these views. That is a scary concept for everyday Alberta families who support the police and who support the bold strategies that the United Conservative Party is taking to tackle crime and disorder in our communities. We will continue to work with law enforcement to reform policing and tackle crime and disorder. This includes, but not limited to, funding 100 more police positions, deploying provincial sheriffs to Calgary and Edmonton, mandating body-worn cameras, banning carding, making the public complaints process independent, establishing diversity and community safety plans, and encouraging greater collaboration between police and civilian partners. We also need to address the root causes of these issues by showing compassion for those struggling with addiction through mental health and recovery supports in communities across Alberta, which we are doing. But families and businesses are sick and tired of the chaos that has overtaken their streets, parks, and transit systems. They want their communities back. United Conservatives are taking real action to address this and working collaboratively with our brave police to do it, while the NDP, I believe, have some explaining to do. Thank you very much, and I'm happy to answer your questions.
We'll go to the microphone just over there. If you could please state your name, your outlet. You will have one question, one follow-up.
Bill Kaufman, Post Media. I'm just wondering, Minister Schulz, do you find it appropriate that the Premier was, you're talking about law and order, but do you find it appropriate that the Premier was chose to take a call from a person facing criminal charges in the Coutts blockade from last year?
I would say this, that all MLAs, including my colleagues alongside me today and all of those who ran in leadership race last year, took calls and heard concerns from a variety of Albertans from across the province, and particularly heard their perspectives on COVID and the restrictions that were in place at the time. I would say that the Premier has spoken to this. She did reach out to Justice Minister Tyler Shandro for advice, which he provided. Any other questions could be directed towards the Premier's office on that issue.
Yes, but we have the Premier, expressing sympathy for somebody accused of taking part in something that, who's charged with non-COVID related charges, pretty serious criminal charges. And I mean, do you think that was appropriate?
I would say again that as elected officials, we hear from Albertans on a variety of issues every single day. When it comes to this case, the Premier did reach out to the Minister of Justice for advice. She took that advice and she has commented on that situation, and any other questions about that could be referred to the Premier's office.
All right, we'll go to next question.
Alana Smith, Globe and Mail. Question for you, generally speaking, for an announcement like this, we'd usually see the Justice Minister go up or the Minister of Public Safety. In fact, we had a very similar press conference yesterday, so I just wonder if you can explain, one, why you're doing it, and two, why today?
I would say this, following on yesterday's announcement made by our colleagues about our commitments to support law enforcement and policing in our province, that was a government announcement. Today we are here as candidates in the upcoming election, and I do think that Rachel Notley and her candidates running for the NDP have some explaining to do about their perspectives and the comments that they have made about policing. I think that this also is curious that Rachel Notley has been very quiet on this issue. She has not released a plan. I don't believe they have a plan. And I do feel like Albertans deserve to know the context from each of these candidates about the comments that they had made.
Hoping you can say why you're delivering this announcement, though. And then my second question, just to follow up on Bill's, it's one thing to take a call from a constituent. It's an entirely different story to take a call from somebody who's 3 or so weeks away from a criminal trial. So I'd really like you to answer whether or not you thought this was appropriate, yes or no.
I will say this, that the reason why I'm here today, I am running again to be the MLA for Calgary Shaw as a candidate, a United Conservative candidate in the upcoming election. This is something that I hear about every single day when I'm door knocking, especially given that my riding is in vicinity of the C train stations. In fact, at the end of the line on the C train in the south. This is something that matters not only to my constituents, but constituents right across Calgary, Edmonton, and crime matters across rural Alberta as well. So I do think that it is fair for us to ask the NDP leader to respond to the comments made by her candidates so that Albertans understand what their position is on disorder and crime in our communities.
And we'll go next question.
Sorry, there was a second question there, so I am hoping for an answer on that one.
I would say, again, any additional questions about that could be directed to the Premier's office.
Thank you. Next question.
Hi, Tiffany Goodwin, City News. We spoke to a researcher yesterday who argued that the announcement of 100 extra police officers is just a knee-jerk reaction, and you can't increase police without increasing, court time, probation officers, and things like that, because more cops doesn't equal convictions. I'm just wondering what your thoughts, if there's anything that you guys are thinking of in terms of improving that area of the justice system, like the courts and the probation, so that when people are released, they have someone there who is monitoring them, because that appears to be lacking in some instances.
Well, and I would say that our colleagues did touch on that yesterday at the government announcement. I would also point out that we know it's not just about police, but additional police presence would absolutely allow people to feel safer, whether it's in their parks or on transit in their communities. When it comes to the social disorder and crime that we're seeing, absolutely, that makes a difference. It makes people feel more confident when they see officers in blue addressing these issues. But I also think, as I said, we need to show compassion for those who are struggling. And the NDP had a one-track plan of consumption and injection sites. I just think, what we're seeing now is a real commitment to address the whole continuum. We have invested quite heavily in mental health and addiction supports, record funding for mental health and addiction supports. We want to prevent these issues from happening in the first place. And for those who are struggling, we have created more than, I believe the number is more than 10,000 funded addictions treatment spaces. These are absolutely necessary so that those who are struggling have access to treatment. We've invested in detox. We still have harm reduction as part of that continuum of care. And so it's not an either or, but I would just say that, say that to people who are riding the C trains, that more police is not going to make them feel more confident. And I would also refer back to Chief McPhee's comments from yesterday about what our police officers face on a day-to-day basis. I do believe that they can use the additional help.
If there's no follow-up, we'll go next question.
Hi, Ms. Schultz, Jason Markusoff from CBC. First question, you're here representing the United Conservative Party, not the government. Mm-hmm. Why is the United Conservative Party and not the government now funding this threatened defamation suit?
I think those questions could absolutely be deferred to the party.
Yeah, okay, could somebody from the party answer that? Okay, follow-up question. We have heard from Premier Smith and others in the party that the other side is going to excavate my old tweets and old comments I made, and that's just looking in the past. What is the line, acceptable line for, I guess, if that's the complaint from the Premier and from your government, about your party, about excavating old tweets, why this today?
What I would say is crime and disorder in our communities, and not just in Calgary, but across the province, is absolutely a top issue for Albertans. And I do think that these candidates have a responsibility to explain to Albertans what their positions are when it comes to crime, policing, and safety in our communities.
And next question.
Hi, Minister Schultz, Jonathan Bradley, Western Standard. My first question for you is, you mentioned that you wanted to see these candidates show them the door. What do you think the probability is that Alberta NDP leader Rachel Notley will show them the door?
I think, first of all, we need to hear from these candidates what they meant by their comments. And I think that Rachel Notley, as the leader of that party, owes Albertans that. We should have an explanation from each of these candidates about what they meant by their comments. And I think that, the NDP can do that. They absolutely can compel these candidates to explain their comments. The Premier has done that. The NDP leader can do the same.
And my second question is, yesterday at the press conference that Calgary Mayor Jyoti Gondek gave, she walked away from Countersignal Editor-Chief Keean Bexley after he asked about her flip-flopping on defunding the police. What do you think of that?
You know, I wasn't at yesterday's announcement, but I can say this. I think the public has a right to know we're elected officials, and that's why in this case we're asking the NDP candidates to explain their positions and the comments that have been made when it comes to crime and social disorder and the importance of policing in our communities. Albertans want to see safe take their kids on the C train or send their post-secondary age students to school knowing that they don't have to lay awake at night thinking about that and their safety, knowing that there are police, that there is a presence, and that there are enough folks out there to keep our community safe. It matters to Albertans, and I think that these candidates and all elected officials have a responsibility to state what they think about this issue.
Thank you.
And we'll go to the next question.
Rick Bell, Calgary Sun. I'm going to follow up on that, which is what I intended to do. You're talking about wanting candidates and MLAs from the opposition to clarify their remarks, which they made on Twitter and on other platforms. As was just stated, the mayor of the city at an announcement where there are substantial dollars, millions of dollars being committed by provincial taxpayers who don't live in Calgary to policing in Calgary, and she has asked for her opinion on, or to explain her previous votes on council, her previous statements about funding and defunding police, and the person who is basically running the show in Calgary, and you're giving half of the money to Calgary, walks away from the podium. Everybody here is talking about how people should speak up and how they should explain themselves. Every day we hear questions about this person should explain themselves and that person should explain themselves. Should Mayor Jyoti Gondek explain herself to the people of Calgary and Alberta?
Yeah, and I'll say this. Like I said, I wasn't at yesterday's announcement, so I don't think it's fair for me to comment on what exactly happened there. But, you know, I would say when we see what's happening in Calgary and Edmonton, the work that's being done across different levels of government with supports in the community and law enforcement is absolutely vital to making sure that we have safe communities. I was pleased to see that the mayor stepped up as part of that announcement and some of our past announcements when it came, whether it was funding to detox spaces or additional sheriffs, largely in the downtown and on the C train. But that said, you know, I think that it's important for all of us at all levels of government to be addressing these issues because they absolutely are serious issues and they are top of mind for people right across Alberta.
And the second question, which is also about Calgary City Hall, I'm sure MLA McIver will be listening intently, having been a long-time councillor. What is the United Conservative government going to do to ensure that the money, provincial taxpayer money you're committing to Calgary, is actually being used as intended for boots on the ground on the front line, given the fact of, let us say, the mayor's conduct and the fact that even today the Calgary Police Commission put out a statement saying, well, we don't mind having the extra money, but it's not the long-term solution to the problem. So how are you going to ensure that that money, not you personally, but the government is going to ensure that that money actually is spent on what it is intended to be spent on?
Yeah, and I think that that's the work that the Minister of Public Safety does with partners like the cities to address investments like yesterday, make sure that those dollars are going to where they're intended to go, which is absolutely, in fact, on boots on the ground, making sure that our communities are safe. And you know what? I would say, you know, it is. When we're looking at a long-term solution, it is not an either or. This is about all of those things, addressing in mental health, treating those compassionately who are struggling with addictions, and then tackling crime so that people feel safe in their communities. It's not an either or, it is all the above.
And we'll go to the microphone for the next question.
Aaron with Livewire Calgary. When I spoke to Chief Neufeld yesterday, he said there was about 135 officer cap per year for training. That's about a 2-year queue already in place for that. So is there any plans to put this overall plan of hiring more officers in effect sooner than the 2-year wait time for it?
Yeah, and again, I would say that because it's linked to yesterday's announcement, would probably be a better question for Minister Ellis, just given the nature of today's announcement. I don't want to speak to that specifically, but we could absolutely follow up and get your response on that. Today's announcement is really about constituents like Cheryl and every Calgarian that is downtown or is visiting a park with their children or using transit, and they want to feel safe in their communities. That's what today is about, and I think some members of the opposition and candidates running for the NDP need to explain what their position is on those things.
Hi, Bill Graveland from Canadian Press. Minister, all the announcements that your government has been making regarding law enforcement, policing rates, is it laying the groundwork for an Alberta police force?
No, this is about supporting the policing that's existing in communities right across the province. And, it is about making sure that we have boots on the ground. We're working with municipalities to address crime, whether that is in our downtown, on our C trains, or when it comes to rural crime and safety. These are issues that matter to Albertans, and we've said we'll be working with municipalities to make sure that there's boots on the ground in the best way that works for them.
Should there be a decision on the Alberta Police Force before the election so voters will know?
That would not be a question for me. That would be for Minister Ellis. But, I will say that he has been clear that we're working with municipalities on that front to move forward in a way that ensures there's boots on the ground in the best way that works for that municipality.
All right, we'll move on to another question.
Hi, Minister. Simon Jones, CTV Calgary. I'm just wondering, first of all, what the measuring stick will be for success with the increased funding and increased boots on the ground.
This is about keeping people safe. It's getting back to the basics. We absolutely, I think some of the measure on the mental health and addiction side is getting those treatment spaces created, and having people be able to access those spaces without being turned away, which was happening before. And so that's why we've invested in community supports and detox spaces and those additional training seats. Now, when it comes to the policing, I think first of all, this is about making sure that people feel safe. Boots on the ground and seeing those officers in blue will absolutely help to support community safety. It will deter crime and social disorder. And I think we can rely on, again, Chief McPhee's comments yesterday outlining what they're seeing in terms of cases on a day-to-day basis, the challenging work that they do. We absolutely need to support them with more resources. And again, when it comes to specific measurements and data, that's where Minister Ellis can speak to that part.
Thank you. And just to backtrack a little bit, the NDP Justice Critic is calling on Calgary UCP MLAs to denounce the Premier's phone call with Pulaski, promising to discuss his case. Do you denounce it?
I would say that the Premier has already spoken to that. She's provided context. She has explained her situation to Albertans, and I don't have any other additional comments to make. Again, this today, and one way that we can measure the effectiveness of this is not waking up to more and more crimes in the paper. I mean, look at Monday in Calgary. That's devastating. For people who live in this city. It's not unlike what we heard from Chief McPhee in Edmonton, and it's not unlike some of the stories that we hear in rural Alberta when it comes to rural crime and safety. So, I think that this matters. I think we need to know what their positions are on policing, the importance of policing, and funding both policing and our justice system.
Thank you.
As I see no other individuals at the mic with questions for MLA and candidate Rebecca Schulz, that concludes our press conference for today. Thank you all for coming.